Howdy ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions podcast. Shit's happening fast now. No more 2 minutes, you guys. You got to get in here. This is episode 521. 521. The Detroit Lions continue the hunt in the offseason. The offseason begins. This is the official Detroit Lions podcast for Reddit. I am your dashing host, Chris, and with me is my good friend and a little sniffly, but still gorgeous co-host, Jeff the Riz Risden. How you doing, buddy?
I am on my third box of Kleenex for the day, and none of them have been used for jovial purposes. It's very sad.
Must be out of lotion. Let's talk about today's show. We got a lot going on. We'll do our warm-ups like we do. Warm-ups are so important now. That 15-second countdown, stuff starts right away. Holy cow, you got to get in here when we tell you. We'll do those. We got some good ones for you. The Brad Holmes presser, I don't know. People might have been talking about that a little bit. I guess we got to cover it. There's some stuff that came out of that, so we'll talk about that. We've also got a paid scout from the Hula Bowl, Ryan Boers. He's an awesome dude. He is smart. He's a crack shot, and he's a Florida man. So in all senses of the word, we'll have Ryan on. He's a great dude. He is a great dude. Known him for a couple years, and I don't know why we've been so mistaken in not getting him on until today, but we'll have him on. You guys are going to love him. We're also going to do a wrap, a 2023 wrap of the team. And it's kind of themed a little different. People talk about yards and that kind of stuff, but we're going to say, what did we learn in 2023? Because I think everybody within earshot of the internet has learned something about the Detroit Lions this year, and maybe even a little something about themselves along the way. So we'll talk about that. That's a big topic. Got all that going on and a whole lot more. Great show lined up. Are you ready to go, Sniffles?
Let's do it.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
Big question. Camper Club, that's a great question. I'm not familiar. Has the draft always been this close to the end of the season?
I see what you did there. There is a push to move it back closer to the end of the season, to have it on the same weekend as tax weekend, which I think is April 15th.
Yeah.
Well, my wife pays my taxes. I'm not smart enough to do this.
9.
But, yeah. And there's actually, like it used to be, I do remember this, like right when I first started really getting into the draft, before I covered it professionally, they did it one year, the last weekend in March. I think it was 1999, maybe 1998. But they've spaced it out since. Look, the NFL, they have a 2-hour primetime special for their schedule release when you already know which freaking teams you're playing.
Yeah.
Like they're going to milk it. They're going to stretch out as much as they can. So, they will always have eyeballs, but yeah.
But they won't have
the way you
milk. I don't know. You were the farm guy, as we learned.
I was.
That was such a great conversation.
So I'm laying on the floor trying to get things taken apart.
It was great. I told Riz I would not let people know, but it was a fantastically fun, funny conversation, insightful. I learned a lot about Riz right there. A couple of his inner demons showed, and my heart grew 3 sizes that day.
I freely admit, I am the least handy person you have ever met, and I guarantee you know that.
At least like anti-handy almost, right? Like I don't know how many times,
yes.
Like the box with the lighting thing. Oh, sorry about that. It's just like,
I didn't touch what you told me not to touch. But when you told me that I could just take the bowl apart, my heart just sank, dude. I'm like, I'm just gonna go jump in the bay. That was rough.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
I love the draft. I don't want to move it up. If anything, I'd love to move it back 2 more weeks. It's just fantastic time. But
Mother's Day weekend would be fun.
The problem is it eats into their time away. So WMW is training to stay up for the Lions pick. Yeah, that's going to be something we really got to get used to. But we'll do that. We'll do that. Okay, so let's get into it. I want to start off really quick, if we can, talking about our warm-ups. I went too fast. And Steve Miller and Captain Anzalone are our 2 warm-ups. I first want to give a shout out to Steve Miller, Abracadabra, man, the greatest music on the planet. We failed miserably at the Senior Bowl. We talked about it while we were there, how busy the days were, 3 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, maybe if we're lucky in a night. We just whistled past Riz having to listen to Steve Miller because we got to the St. Jude number. We may wait until the draft and the draft party to do that. We may do it earlier. We'll figure it out. But I want to make sure we're there to stand over him and get every angle of his rage and anger. And we might want to bring some handcuffs so he can't take the headphones off to make this a more forcible. And we have the fuzzy kind, so it'll be fun. So we're going to do it. We're not forgetting about the Steve Miller punishment for Riz. We're just going to do it at the right time when we can make the most of it. So we've got that coming up. I want to get into Captain Anzalone a little bit.
Yeah.
This is something, man. I'll tell you, for me, we did the post-game show right after, and every game, win, lose, or otherwise, doing the show, you just kind of have to be a little bit flat. You kind of take the top and the bottom off the emotions. You compress the shit out of them. You box them up and you just do your thing. And whether it's, celebration or if it's therapy, you got to be ready for it. So you just kind of do that. And I've really trained myself at one of the things I've been doing is not drinking during games to help me with that. But it's what you got to do for the show. So that kind of takes it out. And then it was all about breaking things down, getting it ready for Senior Bowl the next day. And we had a week that, as we said, it was a busy week. 14 players we interviewed throughout the week. It was crazy. All the practices the whole time. It was a great week. We got a lot done, but I never got a chance to really let it all settle in. Got home, unpacked, had, the Senior Bowl was on, had some Pro Bowl stuff to do, had an interview to prep for, had an operating review to prep for at work that I lead with leadership, all kinds of stuff. Just keeping me busy. And finally today, at the end of work, I had a moment. And this is how far behind I am, folks. I finally read the Anzalone letter that he wrote. Wow. And it's the first time that I actually got a chance to process the loss. And it brought a tear to my eye. And congratulations, Anzalone. That was so well written and so well done. But I felt it in my soul reading that. It was fantastically done. And we learned so much about the players and what they think and how hard this hits them and what it means to them and their souls being in there and their connection to Dan Campbell. That letter was gold, man. I hope Coach and Mr. Holmes frame that, get it signed by Anzalone and frame it and keep it in their home, because that's a very special something. It speaks to kind of what we talked about last year's team. How I told people, I want you to remember this team. This is the team that turned the corner for the Detroit Lions. This is where they pulled the switch when they beat the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau to turn that was it. That was the team that did it. It was a new team this year. And it's another team. We absolutely must remember the guys that brought us 2 playoff victories. The first time we've ever had 2 playoff victories in the Super Bowl era. Ever that we've had 2 playoff victories. Didn't make it to where we wanted to go. But this team was a very, very special team. I have every belief, based especially on what Anzalone wrote, that next year's team will be even more special, but we don't want to forget the people that brought us there. So great job. Great job, Anzalone. Great letter. Riz, I talked a lot about it. I know you said that you want me to talk a lot today because you're sick, but any reactions or thoughts about what Anzalone wrote there?
I read it yesterday morning, Tuesday. Right? Today's Wednesday.
Yeah,
I think it's Wednesday when we're
Wednesday.
Yes. I still haven't gotten caught up on sleep nearly enough. I would say I expected something like that from somebody. I just didn't know where it was going to come from the Lions, because it was clearly, it almost read like a love letter to Dan, but also like we've got you, man. Like we are here and we are on the cusp of something great, and we are going to do whatever we can to make it happen. And I thought that was the right tone from a true leader on the team. And it's fun. It's been fun watching fans come around on Alex Anzalone because he wasn't great.
Let's go with the media too. There's one guy that'll own it. It's you.
I'm happy that he is playing better so the fans don't hate him. And that's been really nice to see. And now it seems like everybody's embracing him, and it's really cool because he's a guy that deserves it. He's a great guy on and off the field. He is a big-time leader on that defense, and I'm glad to see him start to get some recognition for it. That's great.
Florida Gator.
Gator
Yes. Captain Anzalone. Really, really something. A lot of people felt it. It was a love letter to Dan, to the fans. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, to know someone cares. And if you're a parent and you have kids, I guarantee you felt it when he talked about his son. I believe his name is Cooper. And reaching out and talking about, did you win the Super Bowl, Dad? Man, that was a moment, man. That's hard stuff. That's tough stuff. Great that he shared it and kind of just shows you the heart of a man who's done a lot. And again, go Gators. All right. Look, we got to do something about Billy Nips in there in the coaching booth, though. All right. We'll get into this. From there, we'll get into Brad Holmes had a burner of a presser. My goodness gracious. There's a lot of people that felt heat coming out of that, but I feel like what Holmes said needed to be said. The first one, and I loved this one because this is a very special place for me, but he basically cooked everyone who wanted Malik at 2. I've been giggling at him, but all the people, you gotta get a quarterback, you need a quarterback, you gotta push Jared Goff. No understanding of the man. Like, no understanding of what's going on. The absolute experts who put those stakes in the ground and absolutely told you how wrong Brad Holmes, how much of a failure this front office was, how this is just the same old Lions and they're not going to lose and they're not going to win until the Fords sell the team. The same hackneyed bullshit that they've been spitting and could reliably spit for years. They didn't have to, it was easy to be right. It was easy for years to be right because the Lions always fed into it, but nobody gave Holmes and nobody gave Campbell credit in the professionally negative media. And they rode that. And there's a lot of people that bought into it and thought it was a good idea. I don't know where Malik is even anymore. I don't even know if he's in the NFL anymore. I haven't heard he's retired, but he's probably close. I don't know what's going on, but holy cow, none of those people are anywhere. They were everywhere before. None of those people that wanted Malik are anywhere right now. And I'm not here to cook them, right? Because everybody's incorrect. Everybody says things wrong, but nobody owns it. And you know what has to happen? Brad Holmes has to own it every time. So I loved how he did that. I loved that he cooked all those people. It was like, Carlos. That was great. We'll talk about that part of it later. But loved it. Well, he also started talking about how people should evaluate drafts and said, hey, you can't evaluate them on the same day. You can't give draft grades the day after a draft and tell us how we did. You can't reliably look at any of that. Now I'm going to make a counterpoint to that because he does. Every player on his board that he drafts that day has a grade. If he didn't have a grade on them, it would be chaos in that draft room. So now some of his grades are wrong. Some of the other team's grades are wrong, right? But they have to own them. They have to own those grades. Their performance is out there for everybody to see and everybody to talk about, but they grade them. But the thing is, they grade them later when free agency happens. They're regrading people they already graded in the draft. They're grading them at the mid-season if they want to trade for somebody. They're grading them if they want to sign. Zach Ertz, what's his grade? Is he going to do anything for us? Is he the guy? Should we sign? I don't know. Something. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an old
Bruce Irvin.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce Irvin. Like, they have grades on all of those people all of the time, but they own them. They own them, and they have to own them. And the luxury of sitting there behind a keyboard typing things, telling people, whatever you are, you're a ultra fan, you're going to be a scout, you're super smart, you're a journalist, whatever you want to call yourself doing this, some Twitter warrior, doesn't matter. You're never accountable. Riz is accountable. We'll talk about this later, but people aren't accountable. They just disappear. Going back to Malik at 2, where you at? Just say I was wrong. Just say I was wrong. There's integrity in that. But the idea,
it's hard to find those people now, Chris. It really is,
especially in the way society is today. Being right, your takes are wrong. You have bad football takes. Who cares? It doesn't make them a bad person. Maybe they need more experience. Maybe they need to learn from having some bad takes. Right? It's everybody had.
Chris, I don't think you get how the internet works, buddy.
How did you get your? How were your takes at 10 years old? At 17? How are your football takes at 22, Riz? Right? I mean, you honed your skill over time. Like, come on. There is no empathy in the world anymore. Be empathetic.
No, there's not.
Be empathetic.
it's as I posted in the Slack. I'll just do a couple things on this. Number one, it is in fact written into my contract as the managing editor of DraftWire that I do not have to write draft grades because I hate them. I don't like doing them. I don't even like doing them 3 years later. In fact, I pawned that off on somebody yesterday. But what I get to do is I provided an alternative. I said I want to write down my favorite draft pick from every team's draft, and they agreed that that's the solution. And by the way, that piece does really, really well every year.
Mm-hmm.
My pick for the Lions this year, by the way, was Brian Branch. I think I did okay on that.
Yep.
The other thing is, and I lost my train of thought because I'm like, oh crap. I don't know, I'm on so much cold medicine I can't even think.
I got you, bud. I got you. I got you.
Move on.
Yeah. No. And here's the thing. Going back to the draft grades, you can do draft grades. You can do them the day after. And this is where I think Brad's a little bit, I get where he's coming from, but where I think he's misplaced. Just own them. Just like they do. Own them. Change your evaluation. Back to the other point. Be honest and accountable in your takes and say you've learned something. I was wrong. I was wrong are some of the most powerful words in the world. When you don't say that and you act like you're the ultra pro, when you think you're ultra pro and never wrong, guess what? You're just an asshole. You're just an asshole. And when you start wrapping yourselves in labels, that's when it starts getting really, really creepy. Like it gets really funky. Just be honest, because you know what? If you're good at your job, you'll be right more than you're wrong. Justin Rogers, and we'll get. I don't want to push into the whole journalism thing yet, but Justin Rogers, you Riz, you're guys that own it, and you're guys that are very thoughtful. You have ethics. You do a great job in what you do, and you are some of the few. Sam Farmer is another one from the LA Times who's a true quality journalist, and that's where I think a lot of this kind of has to. There's people that are really, really good. There's people that are more pundits. There are editorials, sports entertainment, right? All that thing. Everybody can have a take. Everybody can be right. Everybody can be wrong. Look who's right. Who's right more? Who's more professionally right? Take theirs. They're never always going to be right. You can't trust them. And if you catch them being wrong, it's not that you're so special because you weren't right half the time or even as much as they were. And there's people that take good guesses and there's people that are wrong, but that's okay because they're learning. Just know who you're reading. Just be an intelligent consumer. It's sports. It's fun. Like there's no transitive property in football. If the Lions beat the Packers and the Packers beat Green Bay, it doesn't mean the Lions are going to beat I'm sorry. And the Lions beat the Packers and the Packers beat New Orleans. It doesn't mean the Lions are going to beat New Orleans. That Sunday's a new game. There's no transitive property in that. Players have all kinds of things that go on. So all these draft grades, all these things that go on. In the moment, in that point in time, that is the best evaluation that person has at that moment. I don't mind draft grades the day after the draft. Well, own them. I was wrong on this guy when training camp starts. He really is looking good when you get him on the field and you get him around the other NFL players. Wow, he's really good. Middle of the season, he's a superstar. I mean, oh my God, he's an all-pro. End of the season, yeah, he's third string. He really wasn't all that. He had a real boom, but then he busted after that. Right? Just follow it. And talk about the evaluation. And like Brad said, 3 years later, fine, you can evaluate the draft. But even then, it isn't the total arc of a player's career, right? I think you're getting to the point where you can start talking about Matthew Stafford as a player and start being definitive in who he is as a player. Tom Brady, you can be definitive in who he was as a player. Jahmyr Gibbs, you have no fucking idea. you don't have a leg to stand on. He looked great this year.
Off to a really good start.
Yeah. So this whole thing.
I hear you.
Just own it and enjoy the ride. Enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to say was, I said this on a podcast a few years ago when I was on with, it was either Matt Waldman or Matt Harmon, and I don't mean to mix my Matts up, but I did a podcast with them, and one of the things that we talked about was having your own draft takes and evaluations. And one of the things that I said in it was, die on your own island. Like, don't die for somebody else's opinion. Yeah. And if you don't have the wherewithal or the means or the time to form your opinion, then don't stand on something like don't stand on my opinion because
Just say it's limited
Right.
experience. Or Risden said, and but conversely,
Right.
Justin Rogers said, and then by the way,
Right.
Phil Simms said, and then you say, but based on
Right.
them and the amount I value their opinions, I kind of think this. That's fine, but attribute what you're thinking. Don't take it as your own
Right.
clear-headed original thing. Like
Yeah, and-
Emery Hunt, who's going to be on next week. Sorry, I got to jump
Yes, he
in.
is.
Emery Hunt is,
No, that's good.
football game plan guy is fantastic, does a draft guide every year. He goes to all the games, not all of them because nobody can go to all of them, but he goes to multiple games every weekend. He covers the FCS on CBS.
Good.
He saw him at the Senior Bowl. He's at the Hula Bowl. He's at the Shrine Game. He's at the Tropical Bowl. He's everywhere. He goes and puts in the time and the film and does his own evaluation. He's going to talk about his process next week, and I think you guys are going to be really astounded by it. But on that, he's not always right either. But his thoughts based on his experience and what he's seen. 100% his. He's not relying on Brugler for Brugler's thoughts. And he was talking about, again, when he does his process, he does it a position at a time. He takes the guy he thinks is going to be the top guy and evaluates him. And he takes the guy who he thinks is going to be the bottom guy and evaluates him. And then he works through everybody else and grades them kind of between there. And if he's wrong on the top or the bottom guy, he'll put him outside the scale. But he has then established a scale for where everyone's going to fall. Really, really good, solid plan. And it's 1,500 pages of evaluations. It's gigantic.
It's easy to digest too.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Emery is you'll see him next week. He does great work. We're going to have Ryan Boers on today, who is fantastic as well. Again, he's a paid scout for the Hula Bowl, helps them find the talent that goes to the Hula Bowl. The guy's a smart cat. And I think you're going to enjoy him and what he brings today. It's a lot of really good stuff. But anyway, all kinds of people out there. And Brad Holmes will miss. Brad Holmes will miss. And that's okay, because every GM misses. Brad Holmes doesn't miss that much, though. I gotta say, that's what scares me, is you think about regressing to the mean. Maybe this is maybe we're in this position where we've drafted so bad and the million years and all the other stuff that we're bound to have hits all the way through the draft for the next 15 years. Maybe that's what we've got saved up. I don't know. Holmes has been great, though, so far. And after seeing, I mean, even before his press conference, but after seeing what he's been able to do with this team and put us one quarter away from the Super Bowl, you got to believe in what's here. You've got to believe in what he's doing with this team, man. Oh,
it was funny going through. I went back because I wanted to take accountability for what I had said, and I had a pretty good idea of what I said, but I wanted to remember it. So I went back and I looked at the Facebook comments on some of the Lions Wire things that I wrote about Gibbs, Laporta specifically, because that was one where I was more in line with Brad than most people were. And the volume of comments that had been deleted was very telling. There were more deleted than were there. That's people not owning their opinions. I don't delete stuff. Like you can find my draft evaluations from 2004. They're still out there somewhere if you look up the internet archives. Like you can find them.
Yep.
I don't delete that shit, man. You got to stand by it. Otherwise, what are you doing? You know, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm also someone. The only time I delete tweets is when I have inadvertently insulted somebody that I didn't mean to, or I spell something wrong because I'm a grammar Nazi, and that's it. Like if I have takes, they stay up.
I'm going to edit that so you say you're a Nazi. Adam is spitting truth in the food. I won't do that to you, brother. Don't worry. Brad Holmes' first 3 drafts in terms of hit rate and quality can be stacked up with any 3-year run by a GM anytime. Yeah. Oh God, Adam. The only time Adam deletes tweets is when he gets sued. Crack me up, brother. That's good stuff.
Oh, Adam,
right
we love you, buddy.
That is smoke show tier stuff. Anyway, he talked about having opinions, and if you're not willing to be wrong, you shouldn't have one. And if you aren't willing to pivot and work with new work or new information, then you should not have an opinion either.
Adam, you should be co-hosting for Chris tonight because I'm dying here.
So when it comes to evaluation of drafts, when it comes to thinking about players and grading drafts, it's okay. I think I just really believe that I think Brad was getting something off his chest there a little bit, and I think he's right, because I think who he was talking to, he was absolutely right in what he said. I think more generally, it's okay to grade a draft right after it happened. they drafted those players. That's how they picked them. That's how they got there. It's okay for people to do that, knowing that they're the experts and have more information than we ever will. And also knowing that, you know what, we might be wrong and it's okay. It's okay to pivot on that. It's hard sometimes for people that sit in the seat because people just love you are wrong. Like, you've got 3 followers, right? It's like, it's okay. Like, no one ever know you're wrong. You're a freaking black hole. But it's like people just seem to relish in that for some reason. And it's like, you're just,
they love the gotcha moments. That's the other thing that I wrote in the
man.
Slack was, like, I will get, I'll get 20 out of 25 evaluations right, and people will only ever remember the 5 that I miss, and will constantly throw them back at your face, and they will never remember the ones you got right. When I said that Malik Willis wasn't a top 200 player in that draft, I took so much shit. You know what? I was right. Remember that when you remember how wrong I was on James Houston. That's all I ask. That's all any of us ask. That's all we ask.
Did you see the Tom Brady? What was it? Football Life, or what was the special he did? Man in the Arena. There's a part in it. There's a part in it where he talks about, oh my God, I get accepted in my college of my dreams. That's the best day of my life. Oh, maybe. You don't know. Maybe you went to college and got gang raped on your first day. I mean, I don't want to be extreme, but it's not maybe the best thing that happened anymore, right? Oh my God, we won the Super Bowl. We won the Stanley Cup. That's the best thing that ever happened. Vladimir Konstantinov. Was it? Was being in that limo the best thing that ever happened to him? Maybe, right? Any moment, high or low, the answer is maybe. It's
your perspective is always
time.
changing. That's how you go through life. That's how you advance.
Everything is evaluated over time. Any moment. The beauty of photography, and we met someone who is fantastic at photography when we were in Mobile. The beauty of photography is it steals a moment and it captures something and it tells its own story. But there was a different story that was told before and a completely different story that's been told after. And that's what's so amazing about that, because it's an alternate dimension when you have that still photo. But the time, thing over time, think about that. That's where the important stuff is going on, and where those things come from. Anything? Oh God, I could use some oral relief. Let me ask you. Let me ask you your thoughts on the Brad Holmes presser. Again, I don't want to go too much into what he said about the journalism side of it right now, just because we'll cover that a little bit. But what were your thoughts on Holmes and what he kind of shared with people in that?
So there were 2 things that I took away from it. One, that he acknowledged that Frank Ragnow is pondering retirement, and there's a very real possibility that will happen. Do I know what's going to happen? No, I don't. But Brad Holmes is certainly planning as a contingency that Frank might not be back. And I think we all need to take that a little bit more seriously than we might have before, myself included on that. And the other one,
can I just jump on that one really quick?
Yeah,
because it has direct implications on potentially what happens in the draft, because Jackson Powers Johnson will not last until even until Miami drafts at 21.
There's a lot of people connected. Seattle is also a very possible destination for him too.
He's a long-term solution that is right there in the Ragnow vein of power and skill, and I mean, the guy's a beast, and he's just that right kind of mentality. I wouldn't right now. It's real early. I haven't talked to Brad yet. Right now, I wouldn't be surprised if some kind of deal is in the works to potentially chase him down, because that's a key piece. Keeping Goff clean is a key piece of this offense, and Brad has no problems drafting later. He has no problems drafting later in the draft.
And he said that that the offensive line is the fundamental foundation of everything they do. You better believe they're going to be drafting at least one and bringing somebody else in from the outside. Remember, they have 2 tackles on the roster, period.
Yep.
You can't go to battle with that. And when your offense is predicated on having your quarterback being protected and your running backs given lanes to run in, you cannot skimp on the offensive line.
Yep.
Can't do it.
Yep.
So be prepared that they're probably going to draft more offensive linemen than a lot of fans like. The other thing that I took away from it, and I just lost my train of thought. Blessed. He told you, as Dan told you a couple days earlier, talent doesn't matter if it doesn't fit our culture. That's why Jalen Carter isn't here. That's why Kayvon Thibodeau isn't here. That's why Chase Young isn't here. Y'all are going to have to get used to that. And as I wrote in the Slack, I don't know what their culture. I have a pretty good feel for what their culture is, but I don't know if they're specifically dinging guys, yes or no. Certainly not at this point in the process. I do find some things out later on, like I did learn Jalen Carter last year. The second day we were in Indianapolis, I knew that he was never going to be consideration.
Interesting.
You're going to have to trust that sometimes people like me, people like Eric Schlitt, people like Justin Rogers, are going to learn things about the team that, they just don't like that guy. And we try to be fairly subtle about it. Like, we'll leave him out of the mock draft and people will ask and we'll be just like, I just don't think that he's the best fit there. We almost have some code words worked out for it, actually. Russ Brown and I talked about this. And Russ is doing some great draft stuff behind the scenes. He'll have that out with us on Lions Wire and also for here soon. But you're just going to have to accept the fact that not every player that you think is going to be great in Detroit, Brad and Dan aren't going to see them that way.
Right.
And maybe throttle off a little bit on those of us who are trying to tell you the truth as we know it, because we might, I don't know, we might know a little bit better than you. Like, not to be cocky about it or anything, but like, I've been doing this a very long time. I've made a lot of connections in this business, inside and outside of Detroit, inside and outside of the draft. Like, Chris, I say this all the time. You'll know when I'm giving you my opinion. You'll know when I'm telling you something that I know. And hopefully more people pick up on that, and more people also that are in my position express it that way. I know Dane Brugler's exceptional at that. Lance Zierlein, who I look up to very much, is exceptional at that. You will know when Lance is giving you his opinion, and you will know when he's telling you things that he's heard.
Yes.
And that's the most the only way you can do that with integrity. And I hope that more people fall under the tent of when, like when Dane says something, or when Daniel Jeremiah is sort of hinting at things that there are value. As Matt Miller from ESPN always says, and I love Matt for saying this, evaluations are here. Mock drafts and projections and info are here. They're related because they're about the draft, but they could not be more different. Yes. And I think a lot of people get lost in that. Like the year Zach Wilson was drafted, I knew he was going number 2. Everybody knew who he was coming. That's not everybody knew that. He was not in my top 150 players. And just because he was going number 2 overall and we all knew it, I didn't move him up because I thought he sucked. You know what? I was right.
Yeah.
So, understand the difference between evaluations and information and projections, because they are very different disciplines.
Yeah.
And it's tough. Frankly, it's tough to balance those. So maybe we can ask Ryan about that.
Well, I'm ready to. If you are. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I am. Bring Ryan in, please.
All right. Here, chance to save your voice. Get your schnoz nozzing. Okay, let's do this. Let's bring in the man, Ryan Boers, Hula Scout. How you doing, brother?
What's going on, my friends?
There you are. So, have you sobered up yet? You okay from Senior Bowl week?
Oh, finally. By about Tuesday morning, you're always good.
Yeah. I refired up. I got some the Wet Willie's mix, so I pulled out the Everclear and the Wet Willie's mix and made some drinks on Tuesday night just to get everything back right.
It's too funny because Riz and we date back to when the Shrine used to be here in St. Pete.
Yeah, I remember.
We had many a good times at the Toki over here, and I'd be remiss if we didn't give a little shout out to the Toasted Monkey.
My favorite place on earth, Ryan. You know it.
Man, I'll tell you what, loaded beer garden. Oh man, it's my favorite spot in Mobile, and we wore that.
Yeah, Yeah. Ryan, I'm going to turn the bandwidth down, headed back to you because we're getting a little bit of cutoff. It's been frozen. Yeah, there you are. We'll get you back here in a second. There we go. All right. So it's going to look cloudy to you, but don't worry. You look good to us. We just want to, it's using less bandwidth. So hopefully we can hear it better. You look beautiful. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. First off, a lot of guys. Let's just talk about your bona fides, if we will. Hula Bowl scout. Like you do scouting for money? Like what's this stuff?
No. I just had the privilege of being able to go around. I got to go to 10 games this year within the state of Florida. Got to go to a bunch of UCF, Florida State, and Florida games. Super duper cool. Just trying to get field views and get an idea of some of the players that might be of interest for the game for whenever it came time for Hula Bowl week. Tremendous opportunity. It's the third year now that it's been in Orlando as opposed to over in Hawaii.
Like his internet connection. We'll get him back here. Oh, wait.
Yeah, we'll
get him back here. Ryan.
Keep fighting.
This is the eye problem. The eye device problem. All right, we'll see if he comes back boost mobile. He does it. Jeff, they're saying double up in the vitamin C's tonight. We'll get you going. Ryan was
I got the airborne right over there. Yeah.
When we get Ryan back, we will be talking about
Let's talk about some players.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some players.
Because Ryan is another guy who sees things with his own eyes and doesn't particularly appreciate the group hive mind type mentality.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why he and I have been friends for over 10 years. He's been somebody that, I enjoy his opinions. We don't always agree, and that's fine too.
He's spent a good amount of time under the tutelage of Emery too. And he's learned a lot.
Yes.
He and Emery are close, and he's worked with a lot of people. The one thing that Ryan's really good about is learning and taking the best that he can from other people's thinking and process, and where he doesn't necessarily agree, he kind of discards and either builds his own or takes something else and puts it together to try to craft the best house he can and the best path forward. So we'll see if we can get that internet fixed, and if not, we'll see. It looks, I haven't even gotten a message back from him. He may have fallen off the boot of Florida. He's down in South Florida. Could have been a gator. Could have been a crocodile.
I hope not.
They got both. It's the only place in the world that got gators and crocodiles together.
That's not encouraging.
Florida's like the Australia of the United States.
It really is. You'll have allegedly panthers. You have anacondas now. I saw
bears.
that. Yeah.
Otters.
Good times.
Tortoises.
Yeah. I love otters.
Eagles. We got an eagle that nests in the back 40. All right. Well, we'll hold out on Brian, and we'll give him about just a couple more minutes here, and if not, we're gonna move on and try to pull him in on next week. We got Emery, so maybe the week after we'll see how that goes. Get him plugged into some.
I just got texted by a different Ryan. Interestingly enough.
Interesting. All right, so the Senior Bowl.
Sorry.
Senior Bowl. We have to think about.
It was a really good text.
We have to think about this. Radio for one, there is.
I know.
We got to think about this in the Senior Bowl and what Rag's potential. The idea that Rag now would be back is kind of where my head's at. He's so close, and that ring's right there, and he believes in this team, and that's how he's built. I know that Jonah, when he had to get his meniscus cleaned up, they said, "So you're going to play, right?" I mean, that's what he was approached with, because Rags is in there and he's a mess, right? No, he wasn't going to play, but we'll see if we can get Ryan going here. He looks like he's back, but I just feel like that the grit that comes out of the veins of Frank Ragnow isn't going to let him leave right now, because, and especially if he decides he's going to retire, that changes the calculus of the draft. Ryan, you're back. How you doing, brother? Can you hear us?
I can, my friend. For whatever reason, when I try to connect to the Wi-Fi, it kicks me out. But if I get off of Wi-Fi, it allows me in for whatever reason.
Use the G spot, baby. That's where we're at. That's
Yeah,
how we like it.
yes, sir. We'll try to massage that thing. So I was giving the Hula Bowl a shout out. It was the third year now that it's been over here in Orlando as opposed to Hawaii. Super duper cool. They put on a really good event. We had 48 players that got a call up between the Shrine Game and the Senior Bowl this year. So the scouting staff as a whole did a really good job getting an early ID on guys, giving guys a chance to showcase their talent there in Orlando before going off to Frisco and then to Mobile as well.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about, because I think you talked about what you want to do, and I want to go right to it because I love this idea. We've been talking, we did our 14 player interviews, we did the whole thing. Actually, Ryan, let me ask you one thing before we go. Who had the best table on Radio Row, baby?
Oh, you already know, bro. Detroit Lions podcast.
Every year.
Just having the privilege of being able to try and help run and get a few guys was honestly one of my favorite parts of the week.
Christian Jones.
Christian Jones was nails, dude.
One of our faves, and that was Ryan's get for us. That was Ryan's get.
The worry with him was there was about 3 times that he got where somebody took him. I was trying to grab him, and somebody else would come over. And each interview getting progressively better and better. So I knew that I had to get him at the table because he was getting warmed up, and he was just super insightful guy. And so there was a little bit of anxiety built.
Oh, it hurts my soul. You know how this hurts my soul is.
I know it does.
You know what this
I've
does.
I've been on the other end.
Oh, there we go. We're back. Okay. Okay, man. Let's go right to it. Let's get into it. I want to talk about before we lose you again. I want to get into this. I love this idea. It is building the Senior Bowl all grit team. We know we can't draft them all, but there were players there that exhibited what were the traits of a Detroit Lion. You're a Miami Dolphins guy. I respect that. It's a team. You and me, huge Marino fans. Riz has no freaking clue what he's talking about. He beats up a guy smaller than him about Dan Marino. But your second team, and you bought in, and it's because the head coach and the time he spent with the Dolphins is the Detroit Lions. So you get the all grit. You get Dan Campbell.
Yes, sir. And easily the running back that I think that would be the one that the Lions would be all about, it was Ray Davis from Kentucky. Dude ran for 936 yards one season at Temple. He ran for 1,042 yards in other years at Vandy. And then this year, 1,129 at Kentucky. And I was pretty blown away. There was a couple of passes that were not very good, and he made very good catches, full extension catches that I did not know that he had that in his bag. That I thought he stood out for sure, and he's the kind of guy that when you go to 3 different locker rooms and you have that type of success, you got to have an offensive line that's blocking for you. There's no accident. You're the type of guy that's going to go in and acclimate yourself real quick, and I have no doubt that the Lions would be real excited for him.
What about what you saw, just besides his abilities? What was the grit factor? What was the thing that you saw in him that kind of said he's not just a good player? Because the Lions will forego good players because they lack that little something, right? Which we affectionately call grit. What was it for you that?
Well, I like a little bit of betting on yourself. Going from Temple to Vandy, and then again Vandy from Kentucky, and then he didn't have to go out here to Mobile. The resume kind of speaks for itself. He could have very much rested on that, and he chose to show up. And I'm very much on guys that you tell me where we're going to put the ball down and when we're going to line up and it's time to play. And I think that shows very well for him.
Yeah, I love it. All right, where do we go for running back? What do you think? Who's our next grit player?
Receiver Javon Baker. His approach, my buddies from Cover One asked him what mentality was going to be throughout the weekend. It was very simple: kill DBs.
Yes,
you get under, and he's very explicit. He does not like DBs. He's very polished. He's showing a little bit of an underrated guy coming into the week. As he epitomizes the term junkyard dog. He wants all of the action, and he's the type of guy that I have no doubt that would be all about for the Lions. Former 4-star guy out of Alabama, transfer when they had a pretty good log jam at the receiver room there, and all he did was average 21 yards a catch this year at UCF. He was dominant.
I want to tell you a little.
He was J-Mo's backup.
I want to tell you a little story about Baker.
He was.
We talked about the photojournalist. Baker was there. Okay, this is a story about him. You want to talk about a man and what makes him up and what gets him out. I'm gonna pull this picture up. I got 3 of them. The first one is. It takes a second for this thing to focus. That's his dad.
That's Dad.
And Dad's yelling at him. Dad's yelling at him because he didn't do something right on the field, right? And then after that, let me see if I can get this thing to work. Stupid phone. There we go. After that, then he and Dad had a moment together where they were like, okay, now we got it. Let's move on. And then we got him, and he's here. There we go. And that's the last thing he did before he went back on the field. Says a little something about his connection, where he comes from, the passion, not just from him, but his family. There's something with this kid, and you're right. He showed out. He's a lot of potential, a lot of the right stuff, and you can tell where he comes from. His DNA is Lions DNA. I love that.
No doubt about it. I really like a guy that we'll give a little Hula Bowl love to is Travis Glover out of Georgia State. He got 2 call up.
He got in late, right? He was there day 3 of practice, right?
Up, yes, sir. And he showed out very well all 3 days. He was that a couple times that some of the D-line when we're trying him and he had no problem letting them know that he was there to compete. Perfect type of guy, again, for the Lions. They very much covered the offensive line and that kind of nasty. And he showed his skills very well at 2 different All-Star games. He's a guy that was a little bit underrated heading into the All-Star circuit, and I don't think he's much of a secret anymore.
Yeah, I remember there was one, we'll call it a fight on the field on Thursday when they were doing drills and they came at him, and I think that was his first day there. I didn't see him the first 2 days. At least I didn't catch him there. I thought he was called up just for day 3 and then for the game. And he had no fear. It wasn't Sweat. I forget who it was. It was what's number 9? I don't remember. But they went hard. And he did not back down. He would not take any shit. I love to see that. I love to see that kind of force, that kind of anger in a man without losing his control. You know what I mean? But he was not going to allow any kind of BS to happen on the field.
I always say that good O linemen and D linemen, they're going to be really good bouncers in a nightclub one day. Like, they're not going to be anybody to be messed with.
Yeah, for sure. All right, who you got for us, man? Who else you got?
2 shout outs. We already talked Christian Jones, Jackson Powers Johnson. The same thing for both young. Not only did they work and interview and talk to you guys, but then it was the rest of the week. They could have acted like they didn't know or who you were. And
we lost him again. I know where he's going with this. They could have acted like they didn't know who we were all week, and they stopped by, said, "Hey, how you doing?" Christian Powers.
Like that.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, we lost you for a second there, Ryan. Christian Powers Johnson said that his mom listened to the podcast and loved us and the whole thing. These are guys that they didn't have to say any of that. They didn't have to do any of that, but they made a moment and they remembered everyone they talked to, and they took a moment and they talked to them and reached out when they didn't have to. These are guys that don't step on the little people to get to where they're going, and there's something to be said for that. Something to be said for that for sure.
A guy that I could definitely see the Lions all over would be Braden Fisk out of Florida State. Ties back to the state of Michigan, obviously, and then he was the kind of guy, he was unblockable all week. Didn't matter who you lined him up against. He was there to handle his business. And then the day of the game, they needed him to switch teams, and he had no business switching teams.
Yeah. Now
he was really, really good all week.
Except there's one point. He's got a minus next to his name. It was in drills in the last game. Ryan, I think you were sitting next to me when it happened. He was playing receiver, and Christian Jones picked off the pass.
Yeah, the interception. You can't let the guy cross your face.
Yeah, you can't let an O-lineman pick a pass off when you're a defensive guy like that. I'm going to put that as a minus. I can't have him out there playing tight end like Panay.
And then I'd be remiss if we didn't talk Darius Robinson. What a type of guy to pair opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. I think he makes all the sense in the world as the type of guy who, if you made me give you a name for who I thought maybe could be a Lions first-round pick, I could very well see him being their first-round pick and being their base end opposite Hutchinson. There's some guys that look like Tarzan and play like Jane. He plays like Tarzan too.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. He's the beast.
Big guy, and he was a tackle or inside player. He wasn't necessarily a tackle for most of his career. Lost like 10 pounds, moved outside, and kept kicking ass. And he can do it both. He can do it all. He's a great player. Very much.
And what I like,
in my opinion.
Like from him, universally, the guys who were winners on day one and day two, they weren't practicing on day. He was the one guy who was universally viewed as a winner day one, day two. He had no problem showing up again, kicking ass again.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that, man. We talked about that all week. Those guys that just love ball. Some guys come out, check the boxes and then walk away. But the guys that come out, they care about ball and they like to just give it what they got and show what they got and just play the game. Those are guys. That's a culture thing. We've talked about the Lions. My favorite thing. And I work with a bunch of people from Philadelphia, so I love to say this as I talk about things with work, is the difference between the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles, to a person, to a position, are better players than the Detroit Lions. But as a team, you can't touch them. They can't touch them. They didn't win a game since December 5th, right? Because they weren't a team. And those guys that love ball and play ball and are there for the other guy, not just there to check their boxes, get their contract, and walk off. There's nothing wrong with that. I appreciate it. Right? I want my money too, right? But the guys that are there for ball, there's something different about them, and they're the kind of guys that absolutely will fit a team like the Detroit Lions.
I was the year that it came time for them to take Aiden Hutchinson, because it was a chance for them to show and put their money where their mouth was. Because if they'd have taken Kayvon, then everything that they sit, breathe, tell you in all these press conferences, there would have been no way process would have led them to him over Hutchinson. Everything that they talk about, that probably lead you in 100 times out of 100. And I had a lot of faith when I heard the commissioner say his.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Anyone else on that all grit list for us, Brian?
The only other guy that I really enjoyed was Atu. I knew I was going to butcher his first name, so I was kind of not doing it if I didn't have to. Guy, if you're looking for guys that are going to empty their gas tank, he's another one. That gets almost taken away from him. He had to medically retire, and he doesn't take that for granted one bit. It's the kind of guy that even if you only get one contract out of him, that for the next however many days that one is, you're going to get the very, very best of the young man, and he's a super easy guy to bet on. And we can never speak to medical, so I'm not going to speak to medical, but the mindset and everything that he behind it, easy guy to bet on.
There you go. Love it. All right, Ryan, we're going to get rocking and rolling. We're going to get bouncing, but we're going to get you better internet and have you back again and have a deeper draft discussion as we get into the draft. All right, brother?
Yes, sir. I love you guys.
I want to get you and Emery in a cage match together.
That would be fun.
The dream team. You already know.
All right, Ryan. Love you, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Appreciate you.
All right. Appreciate you too, man. All right, Ryan Boer. Hula will scout this year. More to come from him for sure. He's a quality guy. Definitely. With low quality internet. We'll get that fixed up. All right.
Yeah, we will.
I want to get into the next topic. Yeah, it is. That's the hard part about the whole guest thing is the, is their camera good? Is their mic good? Is their internet good? Is there people around them good? Are they clothed? Anyway, let's get into this. This is a big topic.
All right.
Wrapping up the 2023 Detroit Lions, and what have we learned? And there's a lot of things. I have a list here, Riz, and so I'm gonna give your voice a break and let you take reactionary Riz role. And I'm just going to kind of lead the combo here a little bit. All right. This is my first solo podcast. All right. So the first thing is, oh man, yeah, we don't require pants, just a smiling face and reliable Wi-Fi. All right, let's get it done. Okay, the first thing I think I've learned this year, and I knew it in my soul, but it was proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this front office of the Detroit Lions is for real. It is for real. They made those draft picks this year, and I know we can't evaluate for another year or two, but they made those draft picks this year in the face of hurricane force winds about positional value and wasted picks and why didn't you get Bijan? Oh, you traded away, you lost out everything. Witherspoon would have been nice. He could have done something. But boy, Laporta, the best rookie in Lions history and one of the top guys in the NFL. You got yourself a Jack Campbell who's going to be a beast for a long time. He has a huge ceiling. He started the entirety of this year. This is what you want from your first round picks. We got 3 of them. And Ja Gibbs. I don't think there's anything other than his irrational childlike fear of a roller coaster. Sorry, Gibbs. Just give me a hard time, bro. Other than that, my man was freaking fire. And standing next to him at when we were sidelined at the Tampa game, pictures of him and his girl. Party there. You won there too, bro.
He's doing well in life.
Yeah, you can see he's got a different kind of look in his eyes. Gibbs is anyway, the draft, the front office, it's for real. That's just the first round. The ability they've had to find football players who play the way they play. This front office scouts for real. The only downside, I think, of Brad's press conference and the front office is you feel like they're giving away the juice. Talking about, we find people who love football. No, stop that. Other people are falling in love with all these other dumb things and they have all these busts. Don't tell them the secret formula. Like, right? This is how Coca-Cola's made, baby. We're #1 sales. Get out of here. But there we are. We're talking about it. And there's a lot more to it than just that. But they've got these guys. And if you look at this team, if you look at that locker room after the San Francisco game, if you look at this team all year, no matter what happened, people were fire AG, fire Aaron Glenn. You didn't hear. There was nothing. Nobody stood behind that. Everybody stood up for AG. When things went wrong, everybody stood up for everyone else and said, I need to do better. I need to execute. We need to execute better. We need to do this better. They didn't say, you didn't have defensive players saying the offense sucked and they cost us the game. You didn't see that. You didn't have that. You didn't say, the safety across from me couldn't freaking catch a pass, so it hit him in the hands. What the hell? That was the game right there. You didn't have that kind of blame game. We had a game where that was absolutely on the table. That kind of self-criticism and infighting was on the table after the Baltimore Ravens game. And those players didn't do it because of the type of players that this front office has been able to put in that locker room. So
I'll just interject into that too, Chris. You didn't hear about any of that stuff like behind the scenes off the record either. Like none of that happened.
Yep. Which
speaks very well to how well they identify who is on the team and who isn't on the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic job. This front office is for real. Any 3 years, I saw it earlier, any GM in the NFL over history for 3 years, compare those draft classes and see what you get. Brad Holmes is an absolute winner. And that's the one thing that made me so mad about the Rams game and it not being, from a journalism standpoint, a Detroit story and a Brad Holmes retribution and ascension story and a Jared Goff retribution and ascension story. And then after the fact, when Detroit owned it and made it theirs and cheered Jared Goff and booed the evil interloper, Matthew Stafford, that it was like, oh, those fans are terrible. F them. It's a Detroit story. And as always, people kicked Detroit on the way in. Piss off. Great job, everybody. Players, fans, everybody. That was real stuff. I loved that. I loved every minute of it. Enjoy it, folks. The other thing I learned, Coach Campbell's for real. Dumb like a fox. Dumb like a fox. All these meathead people don't know. He don't know. He's just some lunk-headed. Dumb like a fox.
Kneecaps, Chris. Kneecaps.
Yeah.
You got to bring it up. Kneecaps.
Believe he's dumb. Go ahead and underestimate him. Underestimate that man and see what it gets you. See how far you get against a team that went 12 wins this season by underestimating him. Tell me what you get by underestimating Coach Campbell. He will gouge your eyes out while you're looking at your kneecaps, and then when you're holding your face, your kneecaps have been absconded with. Just to use the vernacular. Coach Campbell's for real. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to build a culture, and he knows how to build people that'll go. You got fans saying, I'll run through a wall for him. It's fun. It's fun, right? It's fun to say. But there's people that are serious. There's a lot of fans that are serious. They don't even play for that man, and they'll run through the wall for him. Coach Campbell's for real. He knows how to lead men. We had Jim Caldwell. We called him a leader of men. Coach Campbell is a man, and he is a leader of men.
Caldwell was more like a grandfather to them.
Yeah. Caldwell is
like
exponential.
There is a need for that. And especially coming off of the coach that they came off with, there was a need for that. They needed that more professional, even-keeled style.
Yep. But
at some point, you got to have another tone and another note, and that's just not what Jim Caldwell is.
Yep.
You know, he's a very successful coach, but you'll notice he doesn't last places very long, and I think that's part of it. Is just like, okay, we're organized, we're prepared, we're good. We're not improving a lot. We're not, we've hit a ceiling, and as the Lions, I think, correctly surmised, he was never going to break through that ceiling. They clearly chose poorly in how to replace him, but they finally got it right.
Well,
we're
folks underestimating Campbell. Oh yeah, that act's gonna wear old. It ain't the act. It ain't an act. That's who he is.
No, that's
a
the
man
exact
from
thing.
Texas. That's a man from Texas.
And you see the hirings that are going on now. D'Amico Ryans in Houston got hired because he was an ex-player, because he related to the players, because he was a no BS guy.
Yep.
That's the dude who got hired in Indianapolis is very much like that. I can't think of his name right now. He came from the Eagles. No
Jeff
BS
Saturday?
Guy, no nonsense.
Jeff Saturday. Sorry,
I like Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday's a good dude.
It's just fun to throw him in there.
But even you see that's where the hirings are going, and they're getting away from the brain, and we're the trendsetters.
We're the ones that everybody wants to be now. And this is what we talked about. We need to don't chase the 85 Giants. At the time, it was be the Rams, be the McVays who are setting the tone for how the NFL goes. Here's where things get difficult. We talk about it, and Coach knows it. And because he's himself, he's going to be able to pull this off. But most people come in, set a trend, and then it stagnates. The only group that wasn't able to do that was Bill Belichick. And you can't tell me that Bill Belichick wasn't Bill Belichick everywhere he went. He was one of the most authentic versions of himself. Yeah. Everybody that left tried to be him, right? But they weren't him.
They did.
Nope. Nobody is going to be Dan Campbell, but Dan Campbell. He is a 1 in a million man. And that's why I got to go to my next people, Ben Johnson and AG. They're for real. Ben Johnson had a fat bank account waiting for him. These take notes, keep receipts. These are media lackeys. One of them was banging McVay, as well as another reporter at the same time when he was in Washington, and would just go ahead and go carry his mail. Same person's carrying some mail, might be taking it again from who knows. I don't want to intimate too much, but mail's being carried. I can
verify with no comment.
Mail, both MALE and MAIL, is being carried. buy it. We know who Ben Johnson is, and it's fun. The memes, the Reddit has a great time saying, Ben Johnson doesn't like babies, don't hire him. Besmirching his reputation jokingly, so nobody takes him. But Ben Johnson is one of the most genuinely wonderful human beings. I met someone. I didn't tell you this, Riz. This is crazy. I don't want to give too much away. I met someone who knows him very close, and I validated stories. Let him talk and validate stories. I got his number. We're going to continue talking. Ben Johnson is the real dude. Ultra smart. Everybody says he's ultra smart. Got some stories. Ultra smart dude, right? Ben Johnson stayed, and people didn't want to hear it. People didn't want to listen to me. People, you can't walk away from all that money. Oh, that's life-changing money. You can't do that. People make decisions for different reasons. Of course, I would go coach the Washington whatever there are this week's for $15 million. Absolutely, I would. But I got so much more of a gap. For him, he's got everything. He's got everything he wants. I should have said that differently. Income gap. He's got everything he wants, including a happy, loved job in a loved place where he thinks he can make an actual difference. Who wouldn't want to be the person? I've asked this question before. Who wouldn't want to be the person that won it all in Detroit? Look at Steve Yzerman. The guy still doesn't buy a meal in Detroit. Who wouldn't want to be the person that did that? He understands the value. He loves the people he's with. He loves the team around him. He loves the coach he works for. Ben Johnson stayed twice. He stayed. That's not to say he won't one day go, but he stayed.
Can I ask you something, Chris, on this? And I'm sure that a lot of people are thinking it. Do you think that that's going to make it so teams aren't going to pursue him anymore? Because once bitten, twice shy, 3 times a lady.
Tell me about McDaniels foregoing the job with Indianapolis. If anybody would never get hired again, it was him, and yet there he was in Raiders land.
It's a fair retort.
When you're good, you're good. Randy Moss got pulled into the New England Patriots, and he was a known kind of problem child on the team, right? From the fast guy from from the Steelers, who got his feet frozen in
Antonio Brown.
Thank you, AP. Antonio Brown. People still brought him in. The guy was off the rocker, and they still brought him in because he's that good.
The coaching thing's a little different though. Like McDaniels is a good point, but like if you're a guy that's like, I don't know. I wonder, and I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. I wonder if teams are going to be more reluctant to even approach him because, like, oh, maybe he doesn't want to be a head coach anymore, or never did, and that's just not what he wants to do, and therefore we're going to just not waste our time, and we're not going to get burned the way the Panthers did in 2022 and the way that the Commanders did in 2023, even though it was their own doing in both cases. Like, we don't want that egg on our face. Do you think that's going to happen?
No. I mean, the day after the man lost a life-changing game in a heartbreaking fashion, there on the plane on the way out, seems like maybe you should have planned that a little better with him. And I have a feeling there was a gap in communication there and planning. And oh, by the way,
agreed.
The fact that they didn't even talk to AG and they threw out this fit the way they did shows you just how full of shit the Washington basketball team is. That's what I got to call them now on the Washington basketball team. They're an unserious group of owners, and it looks like the culture hasn't been fixed over there, just judging by their butt-hurtedness. And
They're
to have these
learning on the fly, that's for sure.
They're the basketball team. They do it. They do the NBA. They got to know better. They got to do better. They got to be better. They're garbage.
Their NBA team's terrible too.
Yep. Imagine. So Ben Johnson and AG are for real, and God dang it, I'm glad people believe it. I'm glad people are finally there. Like, we'll talk about how things change, and we talked about the last show that we did prior to the Senior Bowl I was 75% sure that Ben was leaving. Folks in Slack know that night I got information after the show. Chris, you better change your tune, man. You're not right. This is different. And, things change. Again, as we talked about things over time, new information, same great source, great information. Things have changed. Ben's not going anywhere. Ben's staying. I'm certain of it. I heard that. I had to couch it. I said it after the 49ers game in the post-game show. That's the next time we had a show. I told people in the Slack, guys, I said this in the show last night. New information just came in. 80% sure he's staying now. I'm blown away by it. I was blown away by it. Man, I just said this. Oh, well, okay, that's where it is. Said it on the show, and there he was. So I again, things change over time. We've got Ben. We've got AG. AG did a lot with not as much talent as Ben had to work with on his side of the ball. And there were some games that were absolute busts, right? We saw them, but
Baltimore, Seattle,
third quarter. It was one of those things. I believe in AG. And here's the other part.
Quarter
yeah. Here's what you have to think of. Okay. AG and Ben Johnson are not forever stuck as what they were this year. They weren't stuck as what they were the year before. They've learned, they've analyzed, and you know what they're doing every day? They're not sitting around riding the fishing boat, having a grand old time. They're doing football every day. They're reviewing every play, every down, every decision, all off season. 10, 12 hours a day in that building, continuing to work. They're going to continue to grow, learn, and get better as well. So people, Ben Johnson, he got cute with his play calls. Ben Johnson's analyzing the shit out of Ben Johnson right now. Coach Campbell is analyzing the shit out of Ben Johnson. Everybody in that building is analyzing Ben Johnson as they're analyzing Coach Campbell, as they're analyzing AG, as they're analyzing Jared Goff, as they're analyzing everything they did to make themselves better. That's what they do because it's their job. They don't just take time off now until the draft, right? The team doesn't just get to sit around until OTAs. They're working, and those coaches are working. They're going to be better versions of themselves next year, every one of them. And this is a team.
To think that they won't learn and adapt is foolish. That's what they're going to do. I'll just say this on AG's. If we lined up against the secondary that we trotted out at the end of the year, you would laugh at the opposing team. You're like, oh, we're putting 50 on these bitches.
Yeah.
And that was what AG was dealt, and he made the best of it that he could do. Did it work all the time? No, it didn't. It really didn't. Could he have done more to protect his outside corners? Probably. Yeah. I think he'll learn how to do that. But I also think he'll get better outside corners too, and another couple of pieces that he can work with that mean that he won't have to blitz as much and won't have to sacrifice as much run integrity. Because he made some trade-offs, and that sometimes they did work, sometimes they worked very well, sometimes they didn't. But give the man a little bit of credit for working with personnel. I've said it, and I don't mean any offense to this to Kindle Vildor, but he's a guy that should be starting in the UFL, not in the NFL. Yeah. And he started the last 5-6 games of the season, including the playoffs. And by the way, acquitted himself okay. Yeah. He was the best Kindle Vildor he could be.
Yeah, and loved it.
Let's get him somebody better. Let's make him the number 5 corner next year, and I think we'll feel a lot better about AG too.
Yeah, I would go on to something else I learned. Jared Goff is for real. Now, I kind of knew
you stole mine. That was one I was going to use.
I kind of knew it. I'm going to say I was the engineer of the Goff train from the very beginning, and I like. It may have been the emergency podcast when we got him in the trade that I asked the question, what happens if Jared Goff wins a playoff game? Is he a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford? And I've heard all kinds of members of the media, oh, the Goff-fence, it's Goffle. Oh, goof. Constant. Got to get someone to push him. You got to get someone to push him. I'm just going to tell you right now, you can drop your flowers in Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions podcast, or in the super chat. Go ahead. Drop him in, because Jared Goff showed what he could do. He was a highly talented individual, as I knew he was, but he needed pieces around him. Everybody needs pieces around him. It's a team sport. That's why AI can't predict it like they can with predict plays and with success like they can with basketball, because there's 11 guys in the field, more than double. Fewer games to look at too, smaller data set, but there's too much variance in those players. And if you look at who Jared Goff was throwing to in that first year, it would make you shudder. Go back and look at it. It was terrible. Get him a couple pieces. What do you got? You got a guy who's a real valid quarterback. Second highest ranked offense by PFF this year, run by Jared Goff. Got him some running backs, powerful, strong, good, skilled, move running backs. The San Francisco game, they had a couple runs over 40 yards. Now one of them was Gibbs. That's weird. I wouldn't have expected that all to be Montgomery, but it was. Okay, cool. Interesting stuff. Jared Goff is for real, and people shat upon him, and I felt so good for him. It hit me directly in the heart, in the feels, when I heard the Jared Goff chant that game when he came in, because the same people that said we need Malik at 2 that are hiding in the bushes are the same people that said Goff isn't the guy. They're hiding in the bushes too. The same guys. Hey, that take has disappeared and buried. No, I'm on to the Lions they didn't win the Super Bowl. They don't have what it takes to win a Super Bowl. Like it's the new, bad take, whatever. Jared Goff is for real, and we're lucky to have him. We're going to pay him something this year, and I'm happy. I know, because we're not going to overpay him. We're going to pay him probably market rate. It won't be an overpay, and we'll be good shape. And I think in Hendon Hooker, we have a backup. We're better than we were with Sean Hill. Remember how good Sean Hill was a backup? He was the best backup in the league when he was the backup for the Lions. Absolutely. You had such a security blanket there. I think we're going to find with Hendon Hooker, we're in that situation again. And when Jared decides probably after the next contract, when he decides he's going to retire because he's got enough money, I think we're going to be in safe hands. I think we're going to be in safe hands with Hendon Hooker there. Great setup. Great deal for us. That looks awesome. The contract always looks big when they sign it. Everybody signs it. Jared, when Matt Stafford signed his contract, I think at the time was the biggest contract in football. People were freaking out. He's a discount dime. He was a dime store quarterback before he had signed the contract with the Rams. At that point, he was cheap. That's just the way nature of the beast. The cap keeps growing. There we go. I'm really loving it. I'm really loving what Jared Goff has, and I'm happy for him to be able to come in. And the other thing that hit me in the feels was that Instagram post from Kristen Harper, where she gives him a hug on the sidelines. I believe it was the game where they chanted Jared Goff, the game against the Rams. And her quote was, "It was always Detroit," with a little heart. It was like they didn't realize it. Yeah. It all came right there. That's connection, man. That is connection. So Jared Goff is for real. Yeah. I think we also learned what grit means. It was a word. It was on the wall. It's like, yeah, grit. It's something. It was a poster, right? But I think fans, in watching this coach, this front office, these players, understood that it's not just a word or a saying or something to rally around. It's a way of life. It's part of the soul. I heard Pagano and McAfee say this story, and I've been holding on to it now forever. He said, when you're climbing a mountain, the worst thing you can do is look up. All you do is keep climbing, and the top will come, right? Grit. Peter Drucker. I talked about this for millions of listeners on BBC. And by the way, I'm their Lions guy next year. On BBC World Service. Peter Drucker says, culture.
BBC is awesome.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's where the Detroit Lions could eat the Philadelphia Eagles for breakfast, because the culture of this team is different. That's how you get to be the number 2 offense in the NFL, behind, unfortunately, the team that beat us in that championship game, but we had a chance. Grit is for real, and it is a way of life, and it means something. And I think it's infected the city. I think a lot of people in Detroit are feeling it. They had it, but they weren't feeling it. You know what I mean? It's always been what people in Detroit are made of. But I think the Lions and the culture of the team have helped the people in the city feel what it is again and appreciate it and have pride in what's held them up and together for so long.
They've put a more tangible face on it. You can see it now. It's less vague. And hopefully, like we talked about earlier when we were talking about draft evaluations, hopefully we will learn when we look at a player and we watch his film and see how he interacts in interviews, like, oh, he ain't grit.
Yeah.
That's I hope we in the media are better at evaluating that too, because we can always learn and get better at that too.
And that's it. That's the mindset. Just get better. constantly learn. You're a student of life, right? What else did we learn? How much the players, the coaches, the front office, and ownership actually cares. They genuinely care. And for a lot of years, it didn't feel like it. It just felt like we sold the seats. We're going to make the money. We're going to kind of go and do our thing, and then we're going to move out. That Anzalone letter, I go back to that. That's a man who cares. His teammates care. And I think that means a lot to the people of Detroit because they've cared for ages. Detroit has cared. And these folks caring, like this mutual symbiotic caring is, I talk about servant leadership. People say I want to be a leadership coach, but it's just life experience. I've seen this in real life. I didn't just go get an English degree and start typing a blog, right? I've got a lot of life experience outside of just this stuff that I can bring and apply and share with people. And I hope people appreciate it because it gives a perspective. Everyone to a person was howling, is Rod Wood making football decisions? And I was the sole voice with life experience to say, they just told you what they're doing. They just told you who's in charge. They just told you how they're running it. They told you what the culture here is. And even talking to very intelligent people in the media at the training camp that year, they still didn't get it. And even at the end of the first season, they still didn't get what was going on and what they were doing here. This is where I think we're short sold by the media sometimes. Not that they're bad or ill-intentioned. They just don't have the life experience outside typing words, verb, noun, adjective, and football. They just don't have the experience in the places of things like leadership and other things that go into this to be able to evaluate and understand what they're seeing. And it's again, not ill-intentioned. It's just they don't have that. And I'm glad we can bring a little bit of perspective in that space in with what we know and what we learned along the way. But there's a lot to be said about how these people care.
Definitely. And I think there was a lot of skepticism about that from ownership specifically. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you don't hear sell the team anymore. Don't hear that at all.
No. You hear it in Green Bay. Please sell the team. Please sell that team. Don't do that to us.
You certainly are hearing it in Charlotte right now. Yeah. Like, please, Mr. Billionaire, sell the team. You're killing us.
They have good reason to. Other thing I learned.
Yeah, they do.
Sheila Hamp is him. Sheila Hamp. Sheila Hamp is for real. And God dang it. What a gorgeous,
she's good. She's smart.
Wonderful, smart, dedicated, focused, brilliant woman she is. And I couldn't be prouder to have her and the surrounding Ford family as our owners. Period.
She was humble enough to understand that she needed help. And she got the best person that she could in Chris Spielman. Yeah. And they've worked very well together.
Yep. They did it. She's incredible. I couldn't be happier. And the utter class with which she held her head up when she got booed at the Calvin Johnson ceremony, and where she said afterward, think about this. And here's, we'll talk about this, Riz, because you talked a little bit about the media getting shit after the Brad's press conference. She held her head up and said, I'd be booing too. She recognized that's where we're at. I'll take it because I'm confident enough we'll be better. I'm confident enough that we'll get out of there. Yeah. Nobody else knew. She had to come out and say, I have faith and trust in Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes at the darkest times. The darkest times. She came out, she put it all on the line for what looked like the next series of losers in Detroit. I've got quotes from people that say, well, we're journalists, that said joke of a franchise right before the Minnesota win and the win out in that season. She went out there.
When that 1-6 start happened in the second year, she was there for it. She didn't deviate from the plan. She believed in it. And she put her money where her mouth was, and that's all you can ask from an owner. She did a great job with it.
Yep. Great job. Great job. And the last thing I'll tell you
Yep.
that I learned, and I kind of felt it and knew it, but what to think of the entertainment media and journalism. I'll tell you what we've talked about this in the context of AI, right? But there was this pillar of journalism for a long time, the local media, the papers, right? The newspapers, these institutions of journalistic integrity that have been around forever, and blogs and the internet were popping up. And the papers were like, yeah, blogs like that'll ever do anything, right? Well, 192-year-old institution is now called FREEP. We talked about Justin Rogers, Sam Farmer. Those institutions have devolved into blogs. They're all the same because that's the model. But journalism has devolved in most cases in very much the same way. Brad was just taking swings by name at people. Carlos took a couple of shots and deserved, right? Deserved. I don't think he could punch at the radio network that is carrying the games. I think that's probably contractually a problem, but I'm sure he would have had he been able to, and probably named names. The idea is,
I know he knows them.
the idea is, it's entertainment media. Those who are in entertainment media that purport to be journalists are trying to be something they aren't. They're already misreporting facts before they even wrote a story. It's entertainment media. They've blended editorials and news into the same article. They're not even listed. They're not even separated. They're not even labeled. There's the whole journalistic standards that are supposed to be upheld, and they're not. Step out of journalism. Own what you are. Your entertainment media. Just own it. Don't be ashamed of who you are. Don't try to wrap yourself in sheep's clothing and act like you're something you're not, because it's actually more embarrassing. Be who you are. Your entertainment media. Then you can start admitting you're wrong. You don't have to lie and say, I'm a journalist, and then hide from your takes that were editorials that were unlabeled. Just own it. We've been a podcast the whole time. We're wrong. Riz, that's one of the things that we've talked about on the show, but that I love about you and why we're so close. You own when you're wrong. You say, I messed that one up. We've got the where is it? Oh, here it is, the James Houston Memorial. It's fun. It's funny because you know what? You made a mistake. You're wrong. You didn't predict the future. What the fuck's wrong with your crystal ball? You suck. No, it's all point in time.
Imagine being presented with different things that would change your opinion, and actually changing your opinion. It's really not that hard.
Yeah,
a lot of people can't do that.
Yeah. So, I think people take themselves too seriously. Should really understand what they are, embrace what they are, because it's already more honest. You're not hiding yourself and trying to hide behind something. Again, Justin Rogers, Sam Farmer, two guys that I always look up to. Sam Farmer's LA Times, if I didn't mention that. Those guys are real. And maybe I'm just old school and old fashioned, but those are the guys I imagine with a fedora, with a little card that says press on it, right? And hey, come down here, answer the question, right? I mean, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. But that's Justin. He takes the facts, he writes them down. He can write some great long form. The one he did on Spielman, still, I'll go back. I've read that a couple times. Go back a couple months later and read it, right? But he presents you the facts. I don't think people recognize they're painting their opinions on his story and representing his story as as an opinion piece that helps focus their opinions. It's not. You're getting facts and perspectives, and then forming your own opinion out of them and layering it on there. It's like a Rorschach test almost. You know what I mean? I think two different people can get two different things out of some of Roger's stuff just based on what their preconceived notions are. It's really fantastic. People don't recognize that, and it's a wonderful skill to have, to be able to write factually and present something in a way that is non-biased, non-emotional, and Justin is absolutely gifted in that way. Just fantastic.
Yeah. It reminds me of two people that I read when I was a kid. Most people know, like Hal Lebovitz worked for the Cleveland Free Press for a long time. He then worked for the Lorraine Journal, which was my local paper when I was a kid. He was very much like that, and I got a chance to know him through my grandfather. And just I got to even string some high school basketball games for him, just like get him the information.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned so much from reading him and how he presented things like that. And then a guy who's still around, Terry Pluto. People probably heard of Terry around here. Writes for the Cleveland Plain Dealer or Cleveland.com now. But he's a guy, he will always let you know when he's telling you what he's heard and his opinion versus when he is with a fact. And I try to emulate that very much. And I very much appreciate Terry. And I disagree with him on a lot of things, like a lot of his takes. They're not for me, but I love the way that he presents it and the way that he does sort of break down that wall where, like, you know, I'm just telling you what I know, or, you know, this is it, and this is it over here. Like, it's not blended like you talked about. Yeah. He's very good at that, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for Terry. I buy all of his books, every one of them.
I don't want to beat you up here because I know you only have so much voice, but I know there's been a negative reaction by a lot of people in the press because some people felt like they caught strays from Brad's presser.
Oh, yeah, we did.
But now, and I get it. And I'm going to respond first, just so I can give you the freedom. Brad never gets to respond and catches direct shots all the time from the media that are often ill-informed and incorrect, and nobody tends to own it. So he took his shot and he took his opportunity, and God, did they squeal. God, did they squeal. Not undeserved. I personally believe for a lot of them, not all of them, I think a lot of them could very much stand back and say, you know what? I need to rethink this. Because there's one time, Riz, you told me, you know, we were in the media room and we talked about, you know, maybe we were covering this wrong. We are not a colluding body. We should never talk about how we cover something. I cover something, you cover something, we don't cover something. That is exactly what's wrong with the media beyond sports and everything else today. It's a collusion of pals rather than actual takes by people. And I know you're not doing that, and I know you're not part of that, but I think sometimes a little shakeup is good for those folks.
I will just say that, and I'm not the only person that had this opinion and reaction, and because I'm on the other side of that wall a little bit, then
take some shit for it too.
This way, but it's been taken by many people, including you, in the way you're talking tonight about it's free range to just unload on everybody in the media, and they're all shit and they're all worthless and you all don't mean anything. And that's been very frustrating for me. I know it's been frustrating for Justin. It's been frustrating for a lot of other people too, that there is, like, he has dehumanized us in a way that I don't think he intended to. And I don't expect him to apologize for it because he doesn't need to. But I don't think that, I will say it's going to make it harder, because the next time that we do have to criticize him, people are going to be like, "Oh, you're just trying to get back at him for calling you out." And I know that's going to happen already, and that's not what's going. And he has made it more difficult for both himself and for us to cover him. And I don't think he did it on purpose, but it's tough, man. It has been free range on all of us collectively. People are not making a differentiation. But that's the way it is. And that's very frustrating. And it has led one person in the media room I know is ready to quit. I know he is.
Well,
and he is not someone who got called out, because he's taken an enormous amount of crap from this and doesn't want it and doesn't need that in his life, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I don't blame fans for backing, like, Brad, yeah, go get him, mother. You know, that's.
But let me. I want to say, because you said specifically,
it's really, really bad right now. I'll just say it that way.
So, but I didn't just broadly call out the media. I actually individually named people that were not part of the problem. I didn't say everybody either. And if people expect that or think that that's ridiculous, I'm going to flip that.
But that's what people do.
Let me flip that. Isn't that what members of the media do to players and Brad and the coach and Jerry Jacobs and anybody else? Isn't that what happens? The free reign from the public because an article was written with maybe a little malice or maybe just irresponsibly about a player or a coach, or isn't that what happens? It's just the table's been turned and all of a sudden the mirror isn't so pretty, right? I'm not saying that I'm not saying that the media and people across the board should be getting rifled like that. I think that's wrong. And I think that there's a real problem with people and social media and how they treat people, but the turn has tabled, right? And it's like, maybe, just maybe there'll be a little bit more responsibility and accountability from everybody, right? And that's what I'm hoping for. The stuff that happens, the egregious bullshit that you guys are taking, well, it's in the moment. It's a moment in time, right? The egregious bullshit is not okay, right? The mistreatment broadly of the media and people in the media is not okay. I think Carlos deserves it. Carlos played the game and lost. He played the game and lost. He deserves it. You can't have it both ways. I think the 97-1 guy played the game and lost. You can't have it both ways. You can't be professionally bad and then not be held accountable when you were absolutely jackass wrong, right? There's a lot of people catching strays that don't deserve them, though. And that's where the problem is. That's the problem.
On the part with Brad, he gets paid 500 times what I make in a year. That's part of his job. He knows that going in. That's a little different when you're not getting that.
Speaking truth to power, man. You've got millions of readers. Not millions of dollars, millions of readers.
No, yeah. It's been so over the top that everybody's just taking their bazookas of crap and flinging them at everybody.
They just have a new
even
target.
People that don't cover the Lions are taking it. Like I know Duncan Smith, who covers the Pistons for I forget what outlet it is. He's getting crap because he's part of the Detroit media, even though he doesn't cover the Lions at all.
Yeah.
Like that's got to stop. That's wrong, man. And I don't blame Brad for clapping back because if I was in his position, it would be nice to clap back too.
I would have done it long ago. That's why I'm not. That's the only reason.
It has made covering him fairly more difficult going forward for a lot of people.
I don't think covering him fairly is difficult. I think the reaction to the coverage will be difficult. I think covering him fairly would probably be more in everyone's best interest.
No, but I think what you're going to see is that people are going to perceive that
the reaction.
If we're writing favorably, if we're writing favorably about him, we're kissing his ass so we can get in his good graces. Or if we're writing critically about him, like screw that guy, we want him out of here. We're getting back at him. That's the way it's going to get perceived, and that's wrong.
But that's how he has to draft. If he skips Jack Campbell and drafts, I don't know, a wide receiver because everyone wants a wide receiver. Or he drafts Malik Willis because everybody wants him. Oh, he's just doing that because everybody wants him. What a crappy player, right? I mean, he has to face a lot of those same things. Everybody has to face accountability. Like people that work a day job, right, have to face accountability, right? Your accountabilities to your readers. And again, what was it here? I think some people are awful internet trolls, but this has gone too far for reporters thinking of quitting over it. If it's Carlos that's thinking of quitting, I don't think it's gone too far because he made that bed and he made that very serious. I don't have any ill will about him personally, but he absolutely set the table for this, right? And I don't think it's him either because he knows what he's doing. It's part of his calculated kind of what he does. It's what he does. It's a shtick. Yeah. So that's that. But the internet trolls are really the core. It's not what Brad said. It's the internet trolls because the internet trolls go after Brad and the players too and their families. And the stuff that happens, like I'll go to Nagy. You think the people that harassed Nagy's kid at a high school football game in Chicago were doing that alone? It wasn't that the news told them to, but those are the internet trolls of real life. that were harassing a man and his family. These guys see this on the street. They hear it every day, and it's fueled by the types like Carlos and the 97.1 stuff and all that kind of stuff out there. Those people absolutely deserve to be held to account for stirring that kind of animosity toward players, coaches, teams, their families. How about all the assholes, or whoever the asshole was, that had all the Angie's List people show up at Coach Campbell's house, right? Everyone else has forgotten about that. You think he's forgotten about it? That shit's bullshit.
He didn't want to talk about it.
No,
Yeah,
no. The shit
again,
that happens to
they
these people is, and it's fed by this professional negativity. The professional negative people deserve every ounce of this. People that are fair, even-handed, and I'll say it again, Justin, because you know how I am about Justin. I love the guy, and we're completely different people, but I love and respect what he does. And you, I respect and love what you do as well, but it's too kind of schmarmy if I sit here and keep saying you, right? So Justin's the guy I'm gonna hold up. He deserves none of that. Justin deserves absolutely none of that. Go back and read the Spielman article, and then fuck off if you're spitting shit at Justin. Get the hell out. He doesn't deserve it. He is not that person. Target yourself appropriately. Target your stuff appropriately. If you want actual change, if you want valid coverage, if you want real freaking journalism, target the asshole clicky bait motherfuckers. Don't target the people that do real journalism. Because either way, if you target the good ones, you're going to wind up with shit. If you target everybody, you're going to wind up with shit. If you don't target anybody, you're going to wind up with shit. Brad told you. Force change as a consumer. Change the market. Change your demands. Change where you click. Change what you listen to. You have all the power. But all you folks that keep clicking on Carlos, that all these people that know Carlos gave him an F grade, y'all clicked the article. Y'all clicked on it. Guess what? It worked. You fed him. Guys that don't get clicks, they say they're not paid in clicks directly, but they are measured in traffic. They are measured in engagement. And if nobody clicks their shit, things change. Staffing changes.
Go away.
You can't feed the monster you don't like. You can't abuse the people you do. Don't abuse the quality. Don't abuse anybody, really. I mean, be a better person than that, but just don't patronize shitty stores. Don't buy bad products. Your eyes, you're the product. You're ads. You're giving them money. Don't. That's how to win. Being a Twitter asshole isn't how to win. You're just a bigger piece of shit than they are.
That's why you will notice a lot of us are going into Twitter is a one-way thing for a little bit here. Mm-hmm. I don't need people emailing me telling me they hope my kids die in a bus accident again. Oh, I don't need that shit in my life.
Oh God, people from Slack are stalkers now. Like, it's crazy.
That is not uncommon either. And we can all. Sometime we will also, I'll sit down with Jeremy and Nolan and Ben and Kyle, and we will tell these stories of all the horrible things that people say to us all the time. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Brad has empowered those people with what he said. He didn't do it on purpose, so I don't blame him for saying what he said. But it's not helping. It's not helping the coverage of the team.
Most of the media needs to be better. I think the good people keep being good, keep doing your thing, and do your thing. Critical where it needs to be. Praise where it needs to be. Not even critical, and then label it editorial if you're doing that. And facts generally. That's really how to do it. And then let it go. And you know what? Your credibility will clear through, will ride through just fine. But if you start sitting there saying, well, I'm a journalist, and if you listen to my stuff because I'm in the building, you're already full of shit. And then you cry because they fire special
I don't think so, Chris.
You're
taking that too far, man. No, you're taking that too far.
No, if you wrap yourself in the cloak, if you try to get your bona fides by labels rather than by how you do your job, that's not real.
But they're not giving you that unless you have that. Like the Lions, they do gatekeep on those things.
Yeah. But
not as well as they used to, but they still do.
Yeah. But that's not the only way to get information. And let's be honest. You sit in the room, you get to see some practices, but you're saying the same shit that's on YouTube. It's live streamed, the press conferences. There's literally, remember the days where people would live tweet press conferences? I was forever saying, I'm watching them say it, and your tweets coming fucking 3 minutes later, and we're on there. Who cares? What are you doing even? Like, what? Like, I know you feel special because you're in the room, but now you look like a dope because I'm watching it on YouTube, right? That whole thing. Like, I can see all of that. It's the access. So what do you bring from access? Well, a lot of times it's not much. It's not much. Like they sit in the room, they listen to what they're told, and they do the stenography thing, but they don't have access to players. They don't build sources. You know who builds sources? Justin Rogers. You know who builds stories on people and builds long form great art? Justin Rogers. You know who does great reporting like that in journalism? Justin Rogers. If you're just sitting in there watching the press conferences that everyone else watches on YouTube and you write an article about it, you're not a journalist.
That's why I don't call myself a journalist.
Yeah. Don't wrap yourself in the name. Let your work define it. That's the thing. That's the bottom line on that for me. If you're trying to hide behind titles to establish what you are, that's not it. Your work speaks for what you are. That's it. So me and Riz came to blows physically.
It's good.
It is. I love it. And you couldn't talk, so let's be honest. You were fighting with one tonsil behind your throat.
I really got to wrap this up. I'm in need of another dose.
Oh man. Yes, a vapor. What kind of low life wishes death on children? People.
A lot of y'all do.
No,
a lot.
See, now you're doing what you accused me.
At how many people?
You're doing what you accused me of doing to the media. A lot of y'all is not the right answer. It's a small portion of loud assholes. And let's be real. What is Twitter? Twitter is an engagement platform based on rage. People engage with rage more than anything else. So it feeds rage, things that make you mad that you'll interact with so they can feed you more ads. That's it. You're the product. Watch the ads. Thank you. Good night.
There's other outlets that do that too.
Yeah, all social media. Everything. Right now, there is nothing anymore that doesn't exist to feed you ads. That's it. And if that's the case, you're the product. Your data's the product. Your eyes are the product. And how do we keep you involved? We keep you angry. We're
veering into the matrix here.
Yeah, but if we keep you angry, then you'll engage, then you'll watch and see more ads, and then they make more money. But guess what? What does that do to society? Now we're venturing out of sports. We're supposed to stick to sports, but what does that do? You get what you had here last week. I guess they said in Civil War or in Cool Hand Luke, right? You get what you have in society today.
Oh, that's a great movie. I was thinking more of They Live, where they're fighting over looking in the sunglasses. One of the greatest fight scenes ever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that. I love that movie. It's so fun.
Just look.
It's great. It's terrible, but it's great. Oh God! Was it Bosworth? Was that was Brian Bosworth, right?
No, it was Roddy Piper.
There you go. Sorry. What was I thinking of? Anyway,
Brian Bosworth was stone cold.
Yes. No, great stuff. Great stuff. And so that's what it is. That's how it works. That's why it works this way. Sorry, it's off season, but we're not going to do this a lot in the off season. There's a lot to talk about. We wanted to kind of.
We got draft coming. We got free agency coming. We got the combine coming. We got all kinds of stuff coming.
Yeah. There's a ton to cover. There's a ton of Lions talk. But yeah, go ahead and pause. Brad set up a conversation that I think needed to be had, and I think it was a valuable conversation. I think it's one that'll still continue. I think you folks need to treat other people with respect, patronize the ones that deserve it. There's some that are just professional jackwads. Give them what they deserve. Give them what they deserve. Give them what they deserve. All right. With that, Riz has gone dark. He's there. I think he'll be back before we go, but I just really want to click through the show close. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate all of you for listening to the little bit of a rant we had there at the end. Don't forget about us on Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. If you donate $5 or more per month, you get access to the Slack, the most intelligent Lions chat on the internet, and the greatest place to hang out with Riz and I and Ash, and Ash had some dental surgery. He'll be back. As a matter of fact, I got to give Ash a big shout out for everything he did during Senior Bowl. we
Thank
we
you.
got live stream hosed on the internet connection, and if it wasn't for Ash, half of those videos and things would have been days later before they got out. Ash was the savior, the superstar that got this up and running and got all 14 of those interviews out there for you folks. If you haven't seen them, if you've been kind of in Lions kind of cocoon to kind of heal, go back, look at those players. Half of them are going to be first rounders. Half of those players, these are top pick players. These are top guys. Go learn who they are, learn their names, learn about them. There's some real spectacular guys in there. We talked to Roman Wilson of the national champs. AJ Barner, the national champ, Michigan Wolverines. Who's got it better than they do, Riz?
Nobody.
Thank you. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at DET Lions Podcast. DET Lions Podcast is the best place to see us pants free, get all the notes about the show, what's going on, who we're talking to. And also go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast. Because what happens when they do that, Riz?
I get to come into your ear holes automatically.
Thank you for tuning in. We're gonna talk to you next time on the Detroit Lions Podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems, because we've got the finest football organization in the NFL. Top.
We've got Emory Hunt next week too.
Emory Hunt next week, and we're your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection. Thank you all for tuning in. Love you.